Here we are in this Digestive Diseases Clinical Research Center combining both inflammatory bowel disease and hereditary cancer. And it's a good union, it's a good marriage.
The center, there's research going on in so many different areas. So there's lab research that's going on, there's clinical research involving trials, and it's really a unique place because it's truly bench to bedside research. And this is the kind of research where new discoveries happen, new treatments happen, so that advancements can be made.
Everything that's going to happen to us, not just cancer, but all diseases, and our fate is very much determined by our genetic makeup or a genetic signature that's unique to every person. Some of this information is inherited from our parents, and some of it is acquired during life. But for the most part, we believe, and there's a lot of good evidence now, that we can predict with some degree of certainty what's going to happen to all of us, and that includes getting cancer.
Polyposis means there are multiple polyps. And we know now, and we've learned over the years, particularly in the 90s, the progression of polyps to cancer. And that progression is anywhere from 7 to 10 years from developing a polyp into a full-blown cancer. Now, it may be a little bit different in patients who have the hereditary form of the disease. It may progress more quickly.
We're a family study center. It's a genetic register. So our focus is generational, and for us, families are the patient. And in this case, it's families at high risk for rare forms of inherited colorectal cancer.
My name is Stephanie Lerner. I'm 54 years old. I'm a bookkeeper. I work from home. I have 2 grown-up children. I have a husband. We've been married for 34 years. In the hospital, I had 2 days of blood transfusions. I was scoped and told I had all these polyps. I think my reaction more was the fact I had cancer, and my husband, who had freaking out the fact that I was now being diagnosed with cancer and having small children. We couldn't believe this is happening to us. And I went to have a permanent ileostomy done. They were able to, within days, to take me in and remove the whole colon and the whole rectum.
Years ago, before we actually knew what the genes were that caused particular high-risk diseases, patients and families were left in a sort of genetic limbo. And that's a horrible way to live, with uncertainty. There was no way at that time of confirming whether or not their children would inherit a particular disease gene. They had to wait until the disease actually developed.
If you have colon cancer in your family, you have to try then to understand the risks involved. And the risk may not be that great if you have an older family member with colon cancer. But if you have a young member with colon cancer, or if you have multiple members in multiple generations with colon cancer, then at an early age, you should be tested and not be afraid to be tested. The best test is to have a colonoscopy.
As soon as my son had his first colonoscopy, we knew he had the polyps already. Discussion was that he would need surgery before the age of 18. My daughter started from going once a year to every 6 months for colonoscopies. Her polyps started to develop, multiply quite quickly and started to grow in size. And the worry is that if you don't catch it quick enough is when a polyp could go malignant. So her surgery was then scheduled 3 months after his. So I did, in fact, for a while, have them both with temporary ileostomies at home at the same time, which was an interesting period for everybody.
being involved in the research, I think, is a very important thing in terms of cancer genetics, because we're learning so much all the time. And even in the past few years since I've been here myself, we have been able to go back and screen the thousands of samples we have and give many families new information and predictive information that's beneficial to their health and their family's health.
My name is Carol Helston. I'm 56 and I work with my husband in publishing. We do specialty magazines, trade publications, and we do work out of our house, which is kind of nice. I have two sisters. I'm the baby, but my middle sister first had cancer when she was 34 years old, and she was being treated just for cervical cancer, but she decided that a total hysterectomy, since it was cancer, should be done, and they found out that she had uterine cancer and ovarian cancer at that time, and she was 34. It was a bit odd, but they took it all out and everything was fine. And then in 2001, she developed more cancer. This time it was of her common bile duct, and so she had to have a Whipple operation. And at that point in time, her doctor thought it was odd that she'd had already 3-4 primary sites of cancer, and started asking some questions about our family. I was fortunate. I did not have cancer until I was 50, but my sister had it when she was 34, and obviously I have to realize that that's a potential for my children as well. My sister's been very fortunate that the cancers have been caught at an earlier stage than not, and her treatments have been fairly minor as well. She's had the operation, and it was just her first cancer that she had radiation for. But from my children's perspective, I would like to think they'll be able to lead long, full lives, but the reality is that that may not happen.
We can only explain the genetic basis for some of these patients. We can't explain the genetic basis for many. We test for what we know. We find mutations in genes in some of those people, but in many we don't. But because we have their blood samples and tumor samples and information, we can then go back to the lab and start looking for new genes and new genetic basis for understanding these syndromes. So it's really a to and fro type of process, bench to bedside, but then back to the bench and then back and forth. And that's really how you make progress in molecular medicine. That's what we're doing here.
Because we're a multidisciplinary team and we have gastroenterologists that we work with, surgeons, and a psych team as well, we can offer these extra services that go beyond just the genetic testing and identifying families with Lynch syndrome. We can actually care for them over the long term and follow them clinically.
Hereditary gastric cancer families are really interesting. They're families that come to us with stomach cancer. That's what gastric cancer is. And we have families that are, people diagnosed with stomach cancer at 19 years old, 21 years old, and we try and see if there's a hereditary syndrome running in the family.
So what we're doing here actually is looking at the entire genome of some people who have familial pancreas cancer. We're hoping in the next couple of years there may be a major breakthrough in discovering this gene. So that's been our major effort here. We also provide care for patients with pancreas cancer, whether they're genetic cases or not. There's a large surgical program downtown, and we're providing the highest volume of pancreas cancer surgery in the country. So we really have a really nice group of doctors and scientists who are working together to try to get a handle on this disease.
We've also for a very long time been interested in inflammatory bowel disease. These diseases are either ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, both extremely common diseases, not often talked about, but very, very common. And they integrate with one another, these diseases, the hereditary cancers and the inflammatory bowel diseases. In that, both are, we believe, genetic diseases.
We are involved in a very unique study called the GEM study. And in this study, we are looking at individuals who are at risk of developing disease. In other words, these are healthy people, but because they are related to someone who has Crohn's disease, they have a certain risk of developing the disease over time. And what we are hoping is not that they develop disease, but if we study them when they're healthy and then follow them until they may develop the disease, we may be able to figure out what it is that triggered the disease. So this is what is referred to as a prospective cohort study, and it's very big. It's across Canada, and we have centered the coordination and the execution of the study out of Mount Sinai, out of the Zane Cohen Center.
The environment that the Zane Cohen Center has created here has really led to an explosion, I think, in the type of research that we're doing. I think this work environment that this center fosters really allows everybody to work together effectively. It draws actually very well qualified and talented individuals from around the world who see the environment that we have, recognize the expertise, and really want to be a part of this group. And I think that team effort and that group that we've established here is really going to help enhance the type of work that we do in the future.
We have already garnered great recognition within our center from local, national, and international institutions. We have been able to recruit individuals from far and wide into our center. They come there because they are able to study both hereditary cancer and inflammatory bowel diseases. We need your help. We need your dollars to continue the fight against these particular dreaded diseases. We are determined to find the cure for hereditary cancer and the inflammatory diseases. Please give generously. Please help us. We are all in this together.